Welcome one, welcome all. Thank you for tuning in to Cedar Radio, your guide to films playing at the Art House for the week of May 10th through May 16th. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I am a husky-voiced Dave Huffman. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing Red Joan, Poms, Tolkien, and Under the Silver Lake.
We'll also be discussing the power Quentin Tarantino holds over the Cannes Film Festival, a new way to repackage the Alien quadrilogy, and our Cedar 3 picks for favorite spy films. We always like to start off the show with the last scene first. So, Dave, what is the last film you've seen?
The last movie I saw was Clint Eastwood's The Eiger Sanction from the mid-'70s. It's one of his movies that I'd never seen before, and it was just pretty terrible, to be honest with you, but kind of laugh out loud, funny in parts. It's got some great, beautiful, thrilling scenes and great stunt work.
I'd say cinematography is probably pretty good.
But it is one of the clunkiest scripts I've ever seen produced. It's like an example of how not to write like movie exposition. Yeah, they just flat out just tell you everything in the most gratuitous way.
Information dump.
And
here you go.
I think it's hilarious. I don't live in a world where I believe that George Kennedy is a mountain climbing expert. Like that I don't know. It just didn't work at all. It has not aged well, and it was just kind of ridiculous.
I always wonder when there's those movies that you're like, even if the story's okay, but like at a studio level, like the wrong stars just get attached. You're like, that's not right. This is not.
Well, they tried it. It was almost like there was like this James Bondy kind of villain character. He's not really the villain. He's their sort of boss that sends out the assassins. But it was just this ridiculous albino who can't be exposed to light, and it was just.
That's not how albinos.
Well, apparently, when you're such an extreme albino, it is.
Okay.
I didn't check out the science. If we continue the real science series with the Natural History Museum, maybe that could be one we bring in.
That one.
But it was, I would not recommend the Eiger Sanction. And what was the last film you saw, Aaron?
I dove into I think this counts because it was originally a movie, but Netflix serialized or episodic guy. I don't even know what to say. They made episodes. They made a TV show out of The Hateful Eight.
Yes,
and
made a miniseries.
I don't remember if we talked about it when it was doing the roadshow version of theaters, but were you a fan of Hateful Eight? Or
I do like Hateful Eight. I actually prefer the shorter digital version. Yeah, that just I think I got to see. Well, I haven't watched it on Netflix yet with all the added credits that they've added to just kind of pad it out. But
so there's a lot more than that to it. I mean, there's a bunch of new scenes. Every episode has, I would say, roughly like 5 to 8 minutes or so of new scenes
that it wasn't in
that weren't in the
roadshow.
No, I saw the roadshow twice in theaters, and I've seen it probably 3 times on home video since then.
Because the article that I had read made it sound like there was nothing new in it. It was just basically the roadshow version that had been chopped up.
It's no, there's a bunch of new stuff. There's actually a good interview he did with Slash Film where he kind of addresses like literally the article that you and I were sharing that we read, and how that really drove him nuts. He's like, just watch the movie. You can tell if it is or isn't. But he kind of critiques this rush to like label or do an article. The articles were out when it was announced and dropped on Netflix before there was even physically time for anyone to have watched it. And you're like, just watch the thing and then talk about it. It's fine.
So there's new stuff then.
There's some new stuff. It's it's in like my top 2 or 3. No, it's like my 3rd favorite Tarantino film, I think. Because I've just watched it a bunch. The only major problem I had with it originally was the whole Channing Tatum sequence. It was like, just felt clunky to me. Yeah. And he fixed it, in my opinion, with this. In episode 3 of this one, he recontextualizes it. So you see a lot more of when Kurt Russell and everybody arrives. You kind of see like the knowing glances, and you see how the Tim Roth and Michael Madsen and everybody they've kind of coordinated what they're about to do. And then since there's been this 2-episode buildup of we know what everybody arriving at Minnie's Haberdashery is up to, or what they're thinking is going on. It kind of adds another layer to it. That was like, this really actually helps out right now.
And did they? I haven't read anything about sort of the rights issues of it since it was a Weinstein thing and Weinstein assets all got sold off. Is that just something that like Netflix just bought this or something?
He addressed that in the interview. He said Netflix came to him and said like, hey, were you interested? And the interview is great because he kind of talks about the idea of should it be a director's cut like on Blu-ray? And he said the theatrical release, the Roadshow one, he just wanted that to be its own thing. And then, trimmed it down a little bit, but he did have these extra scenes, and he worked with his editor and said, if we do these in like maybe 50-minute chunks, the pacing is different. Now, the scene that kind of drug it down a little bit in a theatrical version works fine if it's only 50 minutes. Right. And they do all end on pretty satisfying narrative beats. Where you're like, ooh, okay. And so you can kind of, take it little by little and appreciate it. That score, I just love that score so much. I feel like the mark nowadays, if you're a fan of a score, is do you have it on vinyl or not? And I do have that one on vinyl. But hearing like the Morricone score, like the opening credit scenes, you're just like, you get to see that it's just that long shot with the cross and the stagecoach coming up there. But I did want to mention, since we're going to be discussing real briefly Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in a minute, that in that interview he mentions that he's got a longer version of Django Unchained that they're going to be putting out. He's not sure how, but he said not in an episodic form, in a feature film format, all one go. But he wanted to wait till after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is out and done, so we can look forward to that hopefully later this year, but probably next year.
He's one of the few filmmakers that when you see a really long running time, it doesn't scare you off.
Yeah. Well, this weekend at the Art House, we had, was it five
movies?
5 new movies.
Yeah.
And then 4 more this week. So I'm losing track of the numbers here. 5 new movies open. Mostly what we were kind of talking about last week with Ask Dr. Ruth. That was most of the buzz was like, I had no idea how much she does. And so many people, we have a pretty large like senior citizen contingency at the theater that are just like some of the diehard regulars that just came out going, she's just exhausting to watch.
Yeah.
I was like, 90.
She's got a lot of energy. Yep.
But that was the one like we mentioned last week. There's just so much to her life. Also, when you live to be 90 years old and you're an active, person throughout your whole life and very worldly as she is, there's a lot to tell in that kind of a story. But then Hesburgh, which we did not mention last week, won the Nedesdy Schwartz Best Documentary Award at the Cleveland Film Festival just about a month ago at this point.
Yeah, a little over a month.
And it turns out people were really anxious to check that one out.
Right, because a lot of the shows at the festival had sold out. We forgot to kind of really talk about it as a festival film.
Yeah.
And so it did really well. So it was originally only supposed to be here for 1 week, but we are holding it for a second week because of the demand, and it's actually going to a full schedule as opposed to the split schedule that it opened with.
This is the problem with opening too many films at once too, where you're like, some of them just have limited showtimes.
Right.
And
it's a rare thing that happens. So hopefully the support will continue in its second week.
A little surprise to me was, since it's about Hesburgh was a longtime president of Notre Dame College. There's a lot of Notre Dame alumni come out. Like there was 3 different guys that came in that had like Notre Dame hat on. And I was like, oh, what film you seen today? He's like, guess. Well, not all of them did that, but like, Hesburgh's like, oh, your hat. And he's
for
like,
those of you listening to this and can't see Aaron, he pointed to the fictional hat on his head.
We had a little bit of Art House news, as I mentioned just a minute ago. We talked about the Cannes Film Festival lineup last episode, and sure enough, we dropped the episode. It's fully edited, ready to go, and then they announced Tarantino's movie is in the festival this year. So Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is going to have its world premiere at the festival next week at this point. So as we mentioned, the running time, 2 hours, 45 minutes for the new one. So
which for Tarantino is right in his normal, like that's a Tarantino running time.
It is, yeah. Having just gone through 3 hours and like 30 minutes of Hateful Eight, I was like, oh, it's not even 3 hours when I saw that running time. But that festival is it's arguably the most powerful, I would say, festival
I would say 100%.
In the world.
I would say it is the gold festival. Standard of film festivals.
So I guess when you are that level of auteur filmmaker and have that relationship with the festival, you can be like, they can announce their lineup, and then when you finish yours, like not even just like that it's screening there, it's in competition as well.
Yeah, they're not going to turn down the opportunity to have the world premiere of the new Tarantino film.
It probably doesn't hurt that your cast is like Margot Robbie, DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, I assume Christoph Waltz is in there somewhere, but I didn't actually look that up yet.
I don't know. So that's a good point.
I'm just going to assume he's in there, some sort of a cameo. And then I found an article I forwarded you yesterday that we've discussed art house royalty on the show before as far as directors go. And I feel like Jean-Pierre Jeunet's got to be
absolutely
one of those. He hasn't had like a massive hit in a while, but he's had so many. And specifically Amélie is like legendary in the art house,
especially
American
here at
world.
the Cedar Lee. It is the film that holds the record for the longest theatrical run ever here at the theater. No, it is
continuous.
Oh well,
and I was going to say Rocky Horror.
Yeah,
and all that,
not counting Rocky Horror, but as a regular feature film, it played here for literally just under a year. I think it was like 11 and a half.
I think it was just short of a year.
Just short of a year, which is unfathomable.
It is. Absolutely.
For a film to do that. So Amélie is still like the all-time hit here at the Cedar Lee.
It is generally art house too, because I was working at the Neon Art House Theater in Dayton at the time, 2 screens, and when you only have 2 screens, you want hits, but after like 7 months of one movie, you're like, we need the screen. And so we kind of had to move on with that one. But I had no idea that was licensed and was a Broadway musical.
Yeah.
So that article brought it up that I was like, what? Didn't last that long, obviously.
Speaking of Jean-Pierre Jeunet's other films that people don't really like to talk about, on April 26th is Alien Day, so we actually watched Alien 4 Resurrection.
Oh, that's right.
Which is the one that he directed.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And it is just such a weird movie.
Yeah.
It's just got him all over it, and it's just, I love that Jean-Pierre Jeunet did an Alien
That they
movie.
brought in like that type of auteur into that
is,
franchise is very interesting.
It is not a wholly successful movie,
Right.
but I really enjoy it.
Wait, so that's Ridley Scott, James Cameron, David Fincher, and Jean-Pierre Jeunet?
Yeah.
That's
It's
not really
amazing.
highlighted as much in the
No,
in the box set of that, as it should
it's
be.
amazing. Yeah.
Well, we brought him up because he has a movie which hopefully will be showing once it's made. He's going to be making an Amélie mockumentary about the making of it, which I'm hoping it's like as whimsical as the movie is oh no, there's just magic in Paris all over the place, and we just captured it as if it was real. So keep an eye out for that one, because that just sounded fascinating to me when we're like, he's doing a mockumentary. But also he's a world-renowned auteur, and the article was talking about how he's having trouble getting
getting money
made
to make a movie. Yeah.
Oh, it's going to go to a streaming service, isn't it? I bet at this point.
Maybe.
The mid-budget and low-budget stuff just...
That's what happens.
Well, anyway, I'm crossing my
knows?
fingers. We will be right back with the 4 new films we are opening this week here at the theater.
And we have a few special events going on this week, including the Met Opera. This week we are showing Dialogue des Carmelites, which is live on May 11th at 12 p.m., and then the Encore Wednesday, May 15th at 6:30 p.m.
We also are continuing the Melt Bar and Grill Late Shift series. This is the second Saturday of the month, so it means it's time for The Room to be on screen Saturday, May 11th at 10 p.m. I don't know if you ever mentioned on the show, but I looked up the IMDb synopsis for it, and I was like, this is comically absurd, because I did not remember that that's what it was. It's Johnny's a successful banker who lives happily in San Francisco townhouse with his fiancée, Lisa. One day, inexplicably, she gets bored with him and decides to seduce his best friend, Mark. From there, nothing is the same ever again.
Well, that's accurate.
I've seen it like probably 15 times, and if you had me describe what it was about, I didn't know he was a banker. I guess I didn't know they were engaged, but
yeah,
that was
You're
just
right. I guess I don't know that he was a banker.
Yeah, it's in there. I mean, once I read it, I was like, that is in there, but that is not my description of The Room. But anyway, The Room, Saturday, May 11th at 10 p.m. The first new film we're opening this week is Poms from co-writer and director Zara Hayes. This is the story of Martha, a woman who moves into a retirement community, starts a cheerleading squad with her fellow residents, proving that it's never too late to follow your dreams.
Welcome to Sun Springs Retirement Community. Have the time of your life for the rest of your life.
We are young, we run free.
We got everything you could ever need. Over 100 clubs. What brings you to Sun Springs?
Oh, I'm just here to die.
Uh-huh.
Hi, moving in. I was hoping you'd be a man. There's not enough erections around here as it is. What's this? You were a cheerleader.
My mother was very sick, so I quit the team.
Maybe you should give it another shot.
We want to start a cheerleading club.
Who will you be cheering for?
Ourselves.
And I think the big reason to see this movie, Aaron, is of course the cast. It's
yeah.
got like just so many Oscar winners and iconic kind of film stars. You've got Diane Keaton and Jackie Weaver and Pam Grier. I just love, like, back in the 70s, what I wouldn't have given to see a movie with Diane Keaton and Pam Grier together.
Yeah.
So
mixing some Rhea Perlman back then. And
I had to wait 40 years to get it.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
You know, at least it's here finally. So I think, Poms is that rare. We always joke about how a lot of the films we're playing here are very heavy and serious, and at least now we've got a nice, very light comedy.
You need a comedy sprinkled in there every now and then. It's going to be interesting, too. I love it when there's directors that are kind of known for one thing and then they kind of like either switch gears. So the director Zara, she's done 10 documentaries, a lot of like TV work and journalistic style documentaries. Like, what? And she co-wrote it, too. It wasn't like she just took a studio assignment. We were like, what was it about this story that just grabbed you? And you're like, I have to make a narrative for the very first time.
And then the other film that we're going to be opening this week is Tolkien, which is by Dom Karukoski, who previously had done Tom of Finland, which I can't remember. We played at the Cinematheque. We did
not here.
Play.
No, we didn't.
And then Tolkien explores the formative years of the orphaned author as he finds friendship, love, and artistic inspiration among a group of fellow outcasts at school.
Since childhood, I have been fascinated with language. I've invented my own.
You invented an entire language?
Yes. I made stories. Legends.
Tell me a story. In any language you want.
It's about journeys. The journeys we take to prove ourselves. It's about adventures.
We should form a club, a brotherhood. We change the world through the power of art.
Music, poetry.
And what about Tolkien? I want to write something.
It's about magic beyond anything anyone has ever felt before.
This film actually was, we mentioned on the last show, because we did the preview screening of it from the Montclair Film Festival with the Q&A afterwards, and seems to be, I'm trying to think of what like the highest award you'd have in like the world of like geekdom. You know, Tolkien is definitely up there with the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit and Simulacron and everything. That
yes, he'd be on the Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore. There you go. I was like, I couldn't think of a good quick metaphor off the top of my head for that. But you know, getting to behind the scenes or like the formative experiences or like how beloved favorite author of literary classics, first was inspired and created the works that have been enjoyed by generations and millions of people at this point. The third movie we're opening is Under the Silver Lake from director David Robert Mitchell. This is his third feature film. It's his follow-up to the art house hit from a couple years ago, It Follows, switching genre gears entirely. This is not, in the art house horror realm. This is definitely, it's a kind of L.A. noir kind of mystery film. Sam is an intelligent but without purpose young man. He finds a mysterious woman swimming in his apartment's pool one night. The next morning, she disappears, and he sets off across L.A. to find her. Along the way, he uncovers a conspiracy far more bizarre.
See you tomorrow. Good.
What the?
Who moves out in the middle of the night?
Nothing strange about it. She wanted to leave. How does that not make sense?
I don't understand why she didn't tell me.
Maybe she didn't like you. Maybe she knows you're poor and haven't paid your rent.
I found some kind of code or like secret message in her apartment.
It means stay quiet. Our world is filled with codes, subliminal messages, from Silver Lake to the Hollywood Hills.
Could any of this be connected to Zara?
I know this girl.
There's a message in the music.
Really think you're gonna find a hidden message in a pop song? 1, 2, 3. Can't quite see it, but I'm close.
Honey, how are you?
Mom, I'm fine. Mostly fine. Why do we assume that all of this information is what we're told it is? Maybe there are people out there who are more important than us, more powerful, communicating things in the world that are meant for only them and not for us.
Yeah.
Oh, you think that's weird?
A little.
Which is a really good description because it's very bizarre. I saw it at last year's film festival. Andrew Garfield is playing kind of like a new millennial version of a slacker where like he just can't really get his life together, but he's not of the Generation X, kind of age in this one. It's one of those things where he's looking for purpose. He hasn't really like found what he really wants to do with his life. And then once he meets this woman, there's a instant spark. They've got great chemistry and you kind of want to see the film progress as like, I want to see a romantic comedy here with these two going, but then she's gone immediately. Like, and not just like left her apartment, like apartment is cleaned out. There's like one symbol written on the wall and it sends him off on this like really, I would say increasingly bizarre noir head trip kind of mystery.
It's such a great kind of like movie premise, like only in a movie. Like if this were in real life, if you had like met a person and the next day their entire apartment, you'd be like, huh, that's weird.
That's weird. Yeah. on to the next thing.
That was,
But I think you need it because there's such a strong click for them and they do connect where he was like, oh, hey, if he is not going anywhere like job wise, career wise, or his personal life, then he has a connection and they're like, they click. He's like, and I think they even make plans to hang out again. So it was like, there was something going to happen there relationship wise. And then all of a sudden, like, it's gone. He's like, this is weird. It's also, you got to be careful talking about it because you don't want to spoil any of the great surprises that come up along the way. If you watch the trailer for it, I'm pretty sure the trailer only incorporates maybe the first 30, 40 minutes of the movie. Okay. It gets bonkers and really fun by the end. I really, really enjoyed it. It has that exploration of just like the weirdness of just groups that gravitate towards LA and the coast over the years, and LA's got a great history with like I don't know, just like bizarre cults and activity and things that even if it isn't all the speculation in the movie isn't necessarily come true, there's a lot of rich history there that he does draw on within the movie, and there's all kinds of different little Easter egg scenes if you've watched a lot of like LA noir movies over the years. Or one quick non-spoiler thing is at one point Andrew Garfield picks up a comic book of Spider-Man and starts reading it. You're like, oh, look at that. That's kind of fun.
A little meta.
Yeah, a little meta there.
This is a film that originally, was supposed to come out last year, played at the film festival a year ago, and then they kept moving it around, and they weren't even going to play it in Cleveland. I basically had to beg them to let us. Yeah, yes. We want to play it. So we had a lot of people asking us if it was ever coming and when it was ever coming. So please, for all of you that
come quick.
Asking, come quick. It's probably only going to be here for this 1 week. And then the final film that we're opening this week is Red Joan by Sir Trevor Robert Nunn.
I had the Sir in on the notes because he is a Sir.
He's a Sir. I love whenever we have a knighted filmmaker. This is a film about English-born Joan Stanley, a Soviet and Communist Party sympathizer who becomes employed as a British civil servant and gets recruited by the KGB in the mid-1930s.
Joan Elizabeth Stanley.
Special branch.
What's going on? You are being charged with 27 breaches of the Official Secrets Act. You must come with us now.
I haven't done anything wrong.
There's a file on you, starting in 1938, when you went to Cambridge University.
The world was so different then. You've no idea.
I'm looking for a personal assistant. You come highly recommended. First-class certificate.
Specialising in theoretical physics.
Even members of the cabinet don't know what we do.
Am I allowed to know what you do?
At Cambridge, you were known to consort with communists.
You must be Joan.
I was never a member.
Who politicised you then?
My little comrade.
Mom? They think that you might be part of some Cambridge spy ring.
It's like a nightmare. Can't believe it's happening.
Imagine one atom split.
Producing huge amounts of energy.
War-ending bomb.
The Russians need your help.
The bomb must be shared.
When are you going to realize you're wasting your time?
Because we're not, are we, Mrs. Stanley?
As we mentioned, art house royalty at the top of the show. All we need to say is, hey, it's a Judi Dench movie.
Yeah, and she's Dame Judi Dench.
Dame Judi Dench. I'm sorry, we have a knighted director.
A knighted director.
And a dame.
And a dame, directing a dame. I love it. So, it's a great little espionage thriller based on a true story that here in America, none of us are really that familiar with.
I had zero idea that this was even a story. So it's based on a novel of the same name, which is based on the true story.
Right.
If Red Joan was actually her nickname in
don't
real
know.
life or not, because it seems like it spoils the spy nature of like what she was doing there. I always like to, as we mentioned before in the show, we go to see, what else has this director done? Kind of get prepped for the new movie coming out. And that's when I found out IMDb just credits him as Trevor Robert Nunn. I was like, he's a Sir. He's knighted, respect. So he was knighted, but he has spent his entire life in the professional life, I should say, in the theater world. So this is a actor's director through and through. And I was trying to do a list of all the stuff that he's won. Off of his Wikipedia page in our notes here, and just read it yourself. It's every major theatrical directing award.
Right. He's got it.
He's got it in there. So, and like I said, obviously working with Judi Dench, who's no stranger to the stage either, should be making for a great spy thriller here. And speaking of which, our Cedarly 3 picks for this week were inspired by Red Joan. We will be right back with our picks for favorite spy films. We also have 2 more events to let you know about this week, including Star Trek fans out there. Heads up, we're showing What We Left Behind, looking back at Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It is showing Monday, May 13th at 7 p.m.
We're also showing a new anime film, The Saga of Tiny Evil, the movie, that plays Thursday, May 16th at 7:30 p.m., and that is in its original Japanese language with English subtitles.
Each week we like to take inspiration from one of the new films opening, and since we are opening Red Joan, a spy thriller, we decided to go with spy films this week to broaden your cinematic world by suggesting 3 spy films to go along with Red Joan. And this was another one that opened up more genres, which I'm glad we can get more specific as future spy films open and we want to do more lists. But this one was, I was like, that's a spy film. That's a spy film too.
Yeah,
That's not what I was picturing here.
Yeah, there's a ton of things that fall into that genre. So.
Did you do any sort of parameters? Because mine, as I was looking at the different lists, it seems like there's either the reveal at the end that someone was a spy or wasn't. So like the audience is not in on it, or the audience was in on it the whole time and gets to see how spycraft works.
No, I've tried to cut a wide swath here of different types of things. So the first one I want to talk about is my favorite. The first one that pops into my head is the original Manchurian Candidate from 1962.
I didn't even run across that any of the lists I was looking at.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
That is 100% my favorite spy film.
That's a great film, but
and of course more timely than ever. If you could imagine something as outrageous as a foreign government infiltrating and having influence over elections here in the U.S. I mean,
fictional.
It just doesn't sound like it's at all possible. But if you've never seen John Frankenheimer's original, it's a fantastic movie with Frank Sinatra and
Angela Lansbury, fantastic role,
and Lawrence Harvey. And I love the fact that even though she's only 5 or 7 years older than Lawrence Harvey, Angela Lansbury is playing his mother. In the film.
Right, yeah,
something like that. But it is truly one of the great performances, and I love just seeing Angela Lansbury we all just think of her as sweet Angela Lansbury, Murder, She Wrote, and then this completely kind of cold-blooded
diabolical
role. It's just fantastic. So if you've never seen Manchurian Candidate, you should rush out right now and get it.
That's true, because I guess my introduction to Lansbury was that Murder, She Wrote, probably voicing Mrs. Potts, Beauty and the Beast. She was already a grandma when I first discovered her. You're like, that's not always true.
I just saw her a few years ago on stage in Blythe Spirit in London, and it was just exciting to see, a legend in person. But again, don't get the remake with Meryl Streep and
Denzel Washington, Liev Schreiber.
It's a sad experience.
It's cinematic purist, it is Jonathan Demme. So
yeah, but it's not good.
No,
it's not a good film.
No.
He missed a mark. It's one of those. I'm not one of those people that's opposed to remaking films. I think you can do it. But that just they didn't do it right.
Work.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Well, I'll go with the first one that popped into my head, which seems like that. Again, gold standard of spy movies. This one, though, too, because it was a bit of history that when I first saw this movie, I was not aware of, which is Jean-Pierre Melville's Army of Shadows from 1969 about the underground resistance fighters in Nazi-occupied France. At that point, I think I was late high. Yeah, I think it was my senior year of high school. I watched it on VHS from the library. And because I was like, I'm a film geek now. I'm getting into film. I'm going to go major in film. So I had to get through all the geek stuff at the library. And my experience up to that point was just German, Nazis, World War II, D-Day, the American experience. So this one was just wait, what? And I watched with a buddy of mine who was bored out of his mind watching it. And I was just the tension in that movie is so, palpable and so well communicated with just the long shots. And I feel like there's only 7 scenes to the whole movie. It's very compact and very kind of minimalist, but you see the kind of moral ambiguity and the tension in every scene in that movie.
I haven't seen that movie probably since VHS either, so it's not that fresh in my mind. But,
I should say I've watched it several times since then. Yeah, I'm not going based on just that memory, but
right. I've probably seen 20,000 movies since that one, so it's not as
a little
crisp.
fuzzy then. A little fuzzy.
Yeah, it's
well, myself and Criterion both say it does stand the test of time and is worth visiting and revisiting.
Well, a movie that's on my list that will never get a Criterion edition.
Oh, I have one of those too.
And has, I would say, aged just as well as whenever it was out, but it is just a wonderful piece of drive-in trash from 1973. It is one of the Ginger films starring Sherry Cafaro, who is directed by her husband, Don Shane, in this series of just wonderful exploitation drive-in movies.
Yeah.
Where she played a sort of female James Bond character. And the one I'm going to recommend has the greatest title of all time, Girls Are for Loving. So if you're in the mood for some just fun kind of exploitation drive-in, early 70s trash, Girls Are for Loving really delivers. So
as a genre film, though, maybe 40 years from now, if Criterion's still going, they'll be all right, we got to do a whole summer genre of drive-in trash.
I'm waiting for Arrow, who does sort of
that's true.
Kind of the Criterion of genre stuff like that. To do, no one really has gone back and discovered or rediscovered the. Although someone did put out a Ginger box set, the 3 films.
Oh, really?
Was out on a DVD box set at one point. So I just remember happening happily upon. I think the first one of her films that I watched was actually The Abductors, which is another great title. That's the final one, I think, in the Ginger trilogy. But they're just great trash. So,
well, compared to that, I guess mine actually may make it more more Criterion, like legit level.
And what's yours?
I went with Body of Lies from 2008, which I'm not a Ridley Scott fan. I'm definitely not a Russell Crowe fan, but it's got DiCaprio, who's just, I mean, always
I forgot all
great
about
watching.
that movie, but that's a great movie.
It's one of those that like the story alone is what really hooked me. There's also like a Oscar Isaac is in there, who wasn't necessarily known by the time in 2008, but it's like tech spy versus like on the ground human intelligence. So Russell Crowe is the tech spy who's using, well, it does get a little dated because it's 2008 and it's like cutting edge technology. It's like, oh, that passed you up like a few years after the movie was made. But he's the guy, you know, the spy like in DC at headquarters watching drone footage and tracking people. And DiCaprio is the on the ground spy who's, you know, in life or death situations. Human intelligence versus, you know, like I said, tech intelligence there. But it's a fairly complicated story of kind of like Western world versus Arab world and the tensions and international politics there. It doesn't get too much into the politics. It's more the effects on the actual human cost of what the spycraft is creating as far as enemies go. Even when there doesn't need to be enemies, you're an enemy just for this one little mission. And then it also narratively is actually a bit more fascinating. It was what really hooked me is Russell Crowe is his boss. So like he's only really telling DiCaprio what he needs to know in certain situations. But you spend more time with DiCaprio, and you're just being a better actor. Like I identified quicker with him because it's like he's on the ground actually doing the work. So like I kind of identified with him and the way that he's being manipulated also. So you have a spy manipulating a spy who's manipulating, you know, human contacts. And it's not necessarily there's some big reveal at the end. We're like, wait, who was a spy the whole time? But you see the different levels of spycraft and how it's kind of exercised throughout the whole story there.
Okay.
Your last one, Dave?
The final one on my list, you know, I was tempted to put, you know, I love James Bond movies, but then I was like, well, everyone already knows to watch James Bond movies.
That's true.
So I was thinking about like forgotten kind of 60s spy movies that people don't really get to see very much. And so I wanted to talk about Michael Caine.
We did Army of Shadows. That's the 60s.
Well, I want to talk about Michael Caine's Ipcress File.
Ooh, yeah.
Which is a great movie, and it's kind of hard to find. I was just noticing, I think it's out of print on DVD and stuff, so I don't know. I think it does show up on Turner
He had a
Classic
great
somewhere.
run in the 60s.
Yeah, a lot of great movies from Michael Caine in the 60s. But and the director, Sidney Furie, which just sounds like itself should be a character.
That's a
in a
spy name,
movie.
yeah.
So it's a really cool movie. It involves just like Manchurian Candidate, brainwashing. It's got a great, very kind of cinematic sort of like scene of how they depict
how
the
they
brainwashing of it. So yeah, Ipcress File, a lot of fun.
I haven't seen that one. Is that like kind of Cold War era sort of spy? Okay.
Yeah, and it's it's about an agent who's trying to be brainwashed to become a double agent and stuff. So yeah, it's really cool.
These are accidentally lining up thematically because we don't share our list ahead of time, so it's a bit more fun to discuss on air. But I went with the 2011 adaptation of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which is British intelligence, Cold War.
Almost on my list.
That was Thomas Alfredson directed that adaptation of John Le Carré.
Yeah, Jean Le Carré.
Who, as soon as I saw that one, that was the last one I added to my list, was like, oh, I forgot about all of his adaptations over the years, which are, I mean, he's the kind of like spy novelist there. This one, though, my favorite Gary Oldman performance, I think, because it's so kind of subtle and he's like this emotionless, but like with just a glance, like he can just communicate so much.
I'm still going to go with True Romance.
Oh, that's I mean, it's a different level, I guess. That's so scenery chewing. Yeah, I don't know. This is just the one like I've revisited a bunch because it's also one of those spy movies that, again, you just see the art of the spycraft, and then you can. Once you know the whole story, you can go back and revisit it and watch any of the characters going through, and you get like, wait, oh, I didn't even notice that look there. Oh, wait, does that mean there? And I just wanted to mention the cast real quick because it's almost it's like a who's who of there. Yeah, it's Gary Oldman, Tom Hardy's in there, Benedict Cumberbatch, Mark Strong, John Hurt, Syrian Hines. I'm forgetting the Colin Firth is in there as well. I noticed the only one on my list that doesn't have Mark Strong is Army of Shadows because Mark Strong is also in Body of Lies. He and DiCaprio are great together in a few of those scenes, but I haven't seen the original film adaptation of Tinker Tailor. Have you seen that one? There's like one from the 60s, I think.
Yeah, no, I've only seen the new version, which is a great movie.
Yeah, we played it here at the theater when it originally came out, and it played for a little bit. It was one of those that several of the like John Le Carré fans were seeing a couple times because it's a really, really strong, very literary adaptation.
And it's a very dense movie. It's the kind of movie that you literally should not get up and go to the bathroom.
No, you can't.
Point.
You can't. You miss something. You come back and be like, wait, I thought he was a good guy.
What?
What's going on there? On next week's episode, we will be discussing 2 new features opening here, All Creatures Here Below and Trial by Fire. So next week's Cedar 3 was inspired by Trial by Fire based on the infamous trial of Cameron Todd Willingham. So our topic will be courtroom dramas. If you have any favorites you'd like to let us know about, submit your picks to @CedarlyTheater using the hashtag Cedarly3, the number 3. As always, thank you for tuning in to Cedarly Radio and lending us your ears this week. All the music heard on the show is original music written by Grant Heineman and performed by the New Heights Jazz Ensemble, used with their permission, of course. Visit clevelandcinemas.com for correct showtimes and to purchase advance tickets. Also, there are links in the show notes. You can use those if you'd like as well. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are @Cedarly Theater, spelled with an R-E at the end because we're fancy like that. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcast, and while you're subscribing, leave us a rating and review, or better yet, tell a fellow film geek about the show. We'll see you at the movies.